Consulting Radio.
Hey everybody, how you doing? Doc G here, and I've got Jimmy Diele and Sharon Gabet with an amazing career, wonderful career in soaps, and she's done so many appearances everywhere. Welcome the famous actress Sharon Gabet.
Welcome, Sharon. How are you?
Wonderful. So happy to be here with New York and New Jersey pals.
So happy to have you.
Yes,
now, you are originally from Indiana, right? You moved to New York City, went to Cornell University. How did you start that acting career? Tell us how that started up for you.
You know, my life was like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, where I had this yellow brick road just laid out before me because I'm in Indiana, lived in a small farm town, wonderful little town called New Haven, Indiana, and got out of high school and didn't know what to do. And my boyfriend's mother said, get into nursing. So I joined the nursing program, and I was going to be a nurse and marry a lawyer and maybe do community theater.
Wow.
And the next thing I know, I'm involved in the local theater, which at Purdue University in Fort Wayne, which happens to be amazing. We won the National College Theater Festival the first year that I started doing productions with Dames at Sea. We were one of 10 productions in the entire country picked to go to Washington, D.C. and perform
Nice.
at the Kennedy Center. And I'm 20 years old.
Wow.
And then from there, a bunch of the actors got in a car one year and said, we're going to Pittsburgh because they have these regional auditions, and you can go audition in Pittsburgh and see if we can get into their MFA programs. And we filled the car. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll go. Jumped in the car, drive to Pittsburgh. I auditioned and I made the finals. And so now I'm back in Washington, D.C. for the finals. And who hires me or gives me a fellowship at Cornell University? You know, and I'm like 22 now. So it was a full fellowship, full ride, plus $50 a week to live on. It's like I'm rich too. And so I had 2 years studying theater at Cornell. And by that time now I'm in New York.
Wow.
And after we finished the 2-year program, everybody says, now let's get in the car and go to New York City and be an actor. And I'm like, okay, jumped in the car again. And within a year I got Raven. So it's just
so
like,
awesome.
you know, somebody invites you in a car to go audition, go.
You were part of the famous Actors Studio too, right? Did you study there?
There I was really, really fortunate as well. Well, I had my training. I had really good training. So yeah, the first year I was in New York, I found out about it. And I auditioned with my best buddy, Frances Fisher, who's done many, many productions. She was in the Titanic, and
Wow.
she's doing a series, The Sinner, right now. She was in Unforgiven with Clint Eastwood, just a wonderful actress. And she's like, let's go audition for the Actors Studio. So I auditioned with her and got in and had a chance to work with Lee Strasberg before he left, with Ilya Kazan, with Arthur Penn, with Ellen Burstyn.
Oh, nice.
I mean, just incredible, incredible people there. Oh, I was lucky.
Well, so
And the
awesome.
funny thing is, I was working on the soap at the time, so they would have sessions in the Actors Studio like at noon during my lunch hour. So I would get on my bike on East 44th Street and tear across town on my bicycle
Wow.
to West 44th Street, where the Actors Studio was, because it was far faster on my bike than it would be if I tried to get a cab. And then take in the session and then get on my bike and get back before afternoon run through. That's New York.
That's New York City for you. Yep, absolutely. You worked on so many great soap operas over the years, and also you're known as Raven, the evil Raven, right? Edge of the Night. Tell us how you went about getting that part. What was it like the first day on the set playing Raven?
So that was my first soap, actually my first big professional job. I'd done 2 or 3 plays, and then I did a Jesus Christ Superstar at the Calderon Concert Hall on Long Island, where Tony winner Cleavant Derricks played Art Judas. It was really a good production. And then I got The Edge of Night, and you know, first of all, playing the bad girl is the best. It just is. You get to do so many fun things. Everybody loves to hate you. It's usually much more interesting and depth-filled character than the good ones. So I get her and I go on, and even though I'd been trained on the stage for many years, it was terrifying. It took me a while because we shoot a show a day, no going up on the edge of night, no second chances, because it was a small budget, and so they shot it as if it were live.
Wow.
And you were not allowed to go up. You had to try to save it because editing is money. So they don't want to have to edit. So that pressure of being on a camera, having an instant performance after, maybe 3 rehearsals, and then maybe sometimes 20 pages of lines.
Wow.
It took me a little while, and I was glad sometimes the camera wasn't so close because my mouth sometimes was but I got better, and had 7 years with Raven, the 7 years of plenty. She was married. I think my name was Raven Alexander Jameson Swift Whitney Devereaux Whitney.
Wow.
By the time I left.
Was it hard to play a character like that, to get into that role?
You know what? I loved her because she gave me confidence. She was knew exactly what she wanted, willful, very confident person, and I was shy and a little bit frightened. Didn't quite have that, gutsy upfront confidence that she had. But what I had was humor. So, and I gave her my humor. Raven became not just a mean bitch, but she was funny. She was hilarious sometimes. So I brought my humor and I gave her my heart. So that by the time I left that show, people loved her. They didn't just hate her. They actually understood her, and they loved her and laughed with her. And she gave me my confidence. By the time I finished that character, I had confidence in myself as an actress.
Nice.
Much more as a person, and so we gave each other a lot in those 7 years.
Pretty wild. She would do anything for money, right, Raven?
She loved money.
She loved money.
We got a first question here, Sharon.
Yes.
Collins wanted to know, what was it like working with Forrest Compton on The Edge of Night, and were you friends with him till his death of COVID?
Yes, I adored Forrest. Forrest, who we called Woody. His nickname was
Woody.
Woody.
Yeah.
And Ann Flood, who was his wife on the show, and both of them had been on The Edge of Night 20 years. So they were, the old guard, and they were still on when the show was live. So they had so many great stories about being on live and flubbing up, and just hilarious, both of them. I loved working with him. I loved everybody on that show. I was talking to you earlier about how The Edge of Night was so special because we shot in a circle. We shot it like it was live, so you actually knew everyone in the cast. On the hour shows, you really only knew the people you were working with. You'd get called down, you'd do your scenes, and then leave, and sometimes you never met anybody else. On The Edge of Night, we had a big circle on that set, and we'd shot, and the cameras would move from one set to another, and you'd watch everybody else's scenes. And when the scene was over, if it was good, you'd applaud everybody. And if it was a really dumb one, we'd whistle and hoot and make fun of them. And so it was a family. It was really a fantastic experience for my first professional experience to be in a place like that where it was like family, and we could laugh and have fun, and you knew everybody, and nobody had the star trip going on. It was just a great, great place to work. And yes, I love Forrest. Loved working with him. He was a riot. Much funnier than his character portends on the camera. He was a riot.
Wow, there were long acting days, weren't they? Tell us about the typical acting, the hours that you put in.
The hours.
The hours. Well, on The Edge of Night again, we were fortunate because a half-an-hour show. So you'd have to be there between 7 and 7:30. and you'd get a basic blocking. Then the cameras would come in, and you'd have a camera blocking. Then you break for lunch.
Oh,
Then
wow.
you have one more blocking, a dress rehearsal, and then you tape. And since we did tape like it was live, you know, the tape would only take, I think the whole show is 22 minutes plus the commercials.
Mhm.
So we frequently would be out of there by 3:30. It was like a school day.
Oh, wow. That's
And
great.
when I went to the hour shows, forget that. Now you go in at 7 and you're lucky if you get out of there at 7.
Well, Sharon, there's
12
something I
hours.
wanted to ask you about that, though, because a lot of times I always heard that they shoot 2 or 3 days within the season a day. That's not what happened with you. You shot daily.
They might, yeah, we shot every day, a show every day. And if we got behind on a rare occasion, or we wanted to make up for a holiday, we would shoot 2 shows in a day. Now, with the half an hour show, that was easier to do. I don't remember how the hour shows did it, but they also shot scene by scene by scene by scene. They didn't shoot the whole show. So they could shoot 2 days of scenes with one person in a chunk, and then, you know, do it that way and then edit it all together later. But no, every day. And sometimes when I first started, I only worked a couple days a week, maybe. But within 3 years, I was working 5 days a week. And as a matter of fact, in your contract, you have to start looking out for yourself. So it's funny what you start negotiating. I negotiated that they could not work me 5 days a week, that they could only work me 4. And then after they worked me 2 weeks of 4, then they had to work me 3. Because now I'm looking for a day off, please. You know? And I have kids by then. So what they would do many times would be shoot my, if they couldn't use me the next day, they'd shoot my scenes and then shoot the show and then shoot my extra scenes for the next day and then put them in. So I still got paid, but didn't have to come into work. You know, that's good contract negotiation.
Any advice for people just getting involved in this? Like, to make sure you read the contract, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's what
Although these days, you know, I'm not sure how they do it anymore because I know the pandemic changed everything, of course.
Mm.
I think they stopped production for a while, and then they brought in the bubbles where everybody's in these bubbles that move around. But from what I hear now, the budgets are just not what they used to be. And they just, you know, slap scenes just really fast. No rehearsal, doesn't matter what they look like. Just get them on and get them out there. So times have changed. I feel fortunate that I was on during the 80s when the 80s really was the creme de la creme of soap opera with ABC's Love in the Afternoon campaign and Luke and Laura in General Hospital, Gloria Monty, and, you know, Lucci. So the 80s were great. Here's a funny story. So I moved up to the Bay Area for a while, and I started to get to know San Francisco. After you've lived in New York 20 years, San Francisco's like, you know, and yeah, find my way around. So I'm in Haight-Ashbury looking around the stores, and there's a retro clothing store. I walk in, and there's an entire rack of 80s soap star. It's called 80s Soap Star Rack. Mm. And I laughed as I went through because I actually have a closet full of my clothes. I bought a lot of my clothes. I could have brought back, like, you know, a huge trunk and sold them, but I'll never do that. I love my 80s clothes.
Wow. Now, most of the soap operas at that time were in New York City, and now most of them are out in Los Angeles, right? Tell me the difference between the Los Angeles soaps and the New York soaps. What's the difference? I know there's a difference between the acting and everything there.
Well, so just think about, now we're talking 80s and 90s, because that changed. I'm not sure exactly when, but I think after 2000, actually all the soaps moved out to LA, what were left. But in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, New York's known as the theater town, the actor town, the real actor town. They had real actors in New York. And indeed, I mean, The Edge of the Night was a murder mystery melodrama, so we had a lot of shady characters. it was a very 50s film noir kind of murder mystery, melodrama type soap, which made it unique. So we used a lot of extras, and they were New York types and New Jersey types and, you know, character actors, just incredible character actors. So that's what New York was known for. And most of the people that I worked with, quite a few of them actually had done Broadway shows. Cliff Nelson, the guy that played Cliff Nelson, Ernie Townsend, was doing a Broadway show while he was doing The Edge of Night. And we had quite a few Broadway stars like Kim Hunter and Elaine Stritch I worked with. So, you know, you'd have actors come in. And John Travolta, and I mean, there's so many actors that started on soaps. Julianne Moore, I worked with on The Edge of Night.
Wow.
And, you know, she went off. So that's where acting was the focus, quote unquote. Whereas Hollywood, in LA, Hollywood was Hollywood. The studios were glitzy. They were big. It was sprawled out. The shows were more perhaps like the nighttime soaps like Dallas and Dynasty, where everybody just got more glitzed up, and they were known more for hiring models and beautiful faces than for hiring actors.
Right.
And so, you know, I mean, that wasn't totally 100% true, but that was the general vibe back then.
Did you want to ever get involved in the Broadway acting scene?
I did, and actually, I did an off-Broadway show before I got Edge, an off-Broadway musical, and then I took, after 2 years on the show, I quit for 5 months. I had planned to quit forever. I thought, okay, I did my stint on a soap. Now I want to do some theater, and I started auditioning and going to all the wonderful classes that New York offers. I started taking ballet, jazz, dance class. I love dance, voice lessons, all that, and working at the Actors Studio, you know, shining up my instrument. And I came very close to 2 Broadway shows, actually. The one that broke my heart that I really wanted was being an understudy for Glenn Close in Circus, the Broadway show Circus. And it was between me and 2 other women, and, you know, didn't get it. But I was, you know, that's how you start. You get really close, and then you keep going, and finally you get when you learn. But then after 5 months, actually, I was in New York in my apartment. My money was running out. I don't think I even had enough money to pay the next month's rent. And I was thinking, oh gosh, what am I going to have to go back to nursing? What am I going to do? And Nick Nicholson, the Edge of Night producer, called me on the phone. And here's my Yellow Brick Road story again. Called me on the phone. He said, we want you back as Raven. And let me tell you, you're going to love what we have planned for you. Awesome. And don't get an agent. He said, just get a lawyer and negotiate with me. It'll save you a lot of money. And he gave me Beverly McKinsey's lawyer, who was so good. And we negotiated a deal. And he was so right. Those last 5 years I had on the show, they just pushed Raven front and center. And I had the best stories. The following year, they sent me to Switzerland. We did a remote in San Moritz, Switzerland, with 2 of the most gorgeous guys on the set and me. That was it.
Yeah, but Sharon, you were in other soap operas as well. Can you talk a little bit about them? I know you were known for Edge of Night, but you were also in what? One Life to Live and Another World. Yes. Can you? So
The Edge of Night went off the air in 1984, unfortunately, but you know, happens. And before the show had even shot its last episode, Procter & Gamble started stealing the talent from The Edge of Night, which they owned, to put in their other shows to bolster. So Larkin Malloy, who was my leading man, and I already had contracts. I had a contract to go on Another World in Brooklyn, which was one of Procter & Gamble shows. And Larkin went to Guiding Light, which was one of their shows. And so I spent 2 years there, and it didn't really work for me because I had a small baby, and then I was pregnant again on that show.
No.
And it's a 12-hour day and a long commute from the Upper West Side to Brooklyn.
Absolutely.
So that and a couple other reasons, I just, that was it. I quit that show. I had my baby 6 months later, and this is what's great about being in on the circuit. 6 months later, One Life to Live shot 2 blocks from my house. I'm like,
Nice.
Forget Brooklyn. This is 2 blocks. So I just called up the producer, and I said, this is Sharon Gabet. Can I come in for a meeting? He says, sure. I went in. I said, I'm looking for a job. And he was like, yeah, sure. And he wrote me in, gave me a job. So then I was on One Life to Live for 2 years. And that was really nice because I wasn't a leading character. I had 2 toddlers by then. That's when I did my nightclub act because I had some time now to work on other things other than just working 5 days a week. It was nice not being the actress that was on every single day and having a little bit less of a frontline character. It was actually nice for me then because I could spend more time with the kids and do other things like sing. So, and then just walk to work, walk home for lunch, see the kids, walk back to work. Really nice.
What about the Love Boat? Tell us about the Love Boat. That was really exciting for you.
It was. It really was. So I think I was on the edge of night then. And the Love Boat was owned by ABC, and The Edge of Night was on ABC. Mm-hmm. And so they were going to do an all soap opera character Edge of Night, or a Love Boat. And they asked me, I mean, there were only maybe 6-7 parts in there, and they were using their actors from all their 4 soaps. And they asked me to play this character. So it was just a thrill. They, fly you there first class. You stay in a beautiful place. Got to meet and work with Janine Turner, who was on General Hospital at the time, but ended up doing that Alaska show. Loved her. What was the name of that show about being in Alaska? Something North.
I know what you mean.
Yeah. And Ruth Warwick, who was about 99 years old and been on All My Children's soap opera forever.
Wow. It
was just so much fun to work. I stayed in her dressing room just like this, going, oh, tell me everything. And I even got to see her without her wig. And she was just a hoot. And Lawrence Lau was in that too. He was on All My Children. And the biggest thing of all, the biggest thrill of all was getting my face in that lifesaver.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And having my,
What about working with Gavin MacLeod in the cast of The Love Boat? Did you get to hang with them?
They were all super great.
Yeah.
Super great. Yeah. Everybody just very professional. And there comes a point when, someone says, oh, they're very professional, and you think, oh, snooty or cold or whatever. No, comes a point when that's what you want. Wow. People that are very professional, because that way you can have fun and you're relaxed, but you're going to get the job done and you're going to do your best. So
awesome. So many questions, right, Doc?
Yeah, comments and questions. First of all, it's Northern Exposure, Kelly said.
Northern Exposure, thank you.
And Kelly also wants to know, do you have a favorite scene or favorite storyline from any of your soaps?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
Probably many.
The Edge of Night wins, definitely, for sure. When I came back after my 5 months off, the first thing was they send me this actor who was just a brilliant actor, trained on the stage, genius mentality, gorgeous Larkin Malloy. They bring him on for me. And, I've worked with a lot of really good actors and had fun, but I had never had the experience of what you call having that chemistry, like Kate Hepburn and Cary Grant, or Kate Hepburn and actually Kate Hepburn, anybody she worked with. But, there was just something about having the word chemistry with someone, and Larkin and I had it. We had the professional stuff, and so we could improvise together and not freak each other out and pick up lines and just adored each other. We just worked so well together. So the storyline was that he was supposed to be the rich Schuyler Whitney, and you know what we said about Raven loving money, and so she wanted that rich Schuyler Whitney and got him. And then we find out that he's really not Schuyler Whitney. Schuyler Whitney was in a plane crash, and he had his face redone to look like Schuyler Whitney because he thought Schuyler Whitney was dead. And then he kills a couple of people, and then Raven finds out about him, but she's in love with him and he's in love with her. But then he realizes she knows and he has to kill her. So they sent us to Switzerland, San Maria, Switzerland, for the big final where he tries to kill her and throw her off a cliff. And he gets killed instead. And the best story ever working with him. So, of course, we worked together so well, they had to bring him back.
Right.
So they had to bring back the real Schuyler Whitney once the fake one died. And then Raven had to win him over again to get all the money back. So that was my first Emmy nomination, which was just an unbelievable thrill to work on a small show like that among so many incredible actors and actresses and, get that. But Henry Slessor just did a brilliant job on that storyline, and Larkin and I just hit it off. So that was my favorite by far.
Right. Tell us about some more of your favorite leading men that you worked with. I know Raven had quite a few with, right?
She did. And, it's funny because, so I was with Sky Larkin like the last 4 years of on the show. And I had not seen a lot of those earlier shows. It's been years and years and years, you forget.
Right.
And so I started a Facebook page, Sharon Rose Gabet on Facebook, for soap operas, and all these Edge of Night lovers after 40 years, came on, and we all loved the show together. And I find out that they have taped all of these early shows from AOL.com when it was rebroadcast and on USA Cable when it was rebroadcast, and they're on YouTube. So we began to watch them together on Facebook, and I saw myself in the early years when Raven was really, really bad. And so I worked with Joe Lambie, first of all, first bad marriage, had a baby with him. Well, Kevin Jameson first. Got pregnant from Joe Lambie, the lawyer, told Kevin it was his baby, and then he told me he was sterile. Soap opera. And then he died chasing me off a cliff, so they got rid of him, gave me Joe Lambie, Logan Swift. I marry him, we have this baby, and I immediately start fair with Elliot Dorn. And now I'm leaving the baby in the house by himself and running off to see Elliot, and just, horrible, horrible Raven stuff. So, already these three actors, they're incredible actors because they have to put up with my shenanigans, but they have to play it straight, not look like a fool. And, they were all really strong actors and just so much fun. And then I went from Elliot Dorn to the chief of police, Derek Mallory, who was played by Dennis Parker. Mm-hmm. And Dennis Parker had a history because Dennis Parker was actually an adult film star, shall we say. And if you walked down, yes, but a fine actor, I have to say, a real good actor. If you walked down 42nd Street at that time in the early 80s, you could actually see some of his films up on the marquee. Wow. But he was a great actor, and he played the chief of police of all things and did a fantastic job. I really enjoyed working with him. And then he passed me on to Larkin, who I pretty much worked with. Oh, and then one more, Alan Coates was another Broadway actor, legit stage actor who came on and did a stint just I've had wonderful men. Very lucky.
And I wanted to tell you,
I married them all.
I wanted to tell everybody that you're also a holistic healer. You're a yoga teacher. You're spirituality. Tell us a little bit about all that stuff that all makes you.
So yes,
that's amazing. It's just amazing.
Everybody does. You know, they believe that you're the character, and that's just the game. So, you know, people still call me Raven. That's fine. I love her. They can call me that. She's a part of me. But Sharon is really nothing like Raven, like I said. You know, I was a nurse, always into healing, and also very much into science and philosophy. And I just started reading books. Philosophy, psychology, astronomy, astrology. I've been an astrologer for 30 years.
Wow.
And all the healing arts, Eastern healing, the chakra system, energy work. So that after I left the soaps, then I wanted to see with the healing profession as a nurse, what are they doing now? And I got totally into mind, body, spirit, health connections, and started working with a lot of groups with alternative healing while I was raising my kids. My third daughter, I have 3 children. My third daughter was born with autism. Wow. So in a way that catapulted me into, you know, all kinds of other research. How can we help her? And that was brain chemistry and right brain, left brain stuff with the autism. So finally, in about 2002, I decided to write a book about Indiana girl goes to New York. And, you know, I wrote about New York City, about my soap opera experience, my acting experience, but then about the whole healing experience I went through of learning about all these different, mostly psychology, you know, about how healing entails much more than just the medical profession. It's consciousness and everything else. So I put that in the book, and then about 20 years later, it was just last year, this book that you see up there was sold out. I sold out my first run, and I saw on Amazon that other vendors were selling that book for 3 and 4 and 5 times how much I sold it, because there weren't any more. So I decided I'm going to do an updated version of that book. And so I did that last year. I don't know if you can cut back to me, because there you can.
Yeah, there you go.
So if you're going to buy the book, this is the one you want to get now, the one where Raven is flying through the galaxy.
Better? Yeah, okay, I see. Yep.
Yeah, because this is the new edition where I added more stories, and I wrote a ton of pictures, like 170 pictures, and also a huge epilogue for what I've been up to in the 20 years since then. And then part of that 20 years was also writing my second book, Spiritual Magic, which the first book, Raven to the Dove, is my stories. It's an easy book to read. I tell my stories, and then I tell what I learned from my stories and what I went through before the soap, during the soaps, and after the soaps. Spiritual Magic is more a collection of all the sciences, hermetic sciences, psychology, the health sciences that I have read. I consolidated them into one book to explaining the, say from a yoga perspective, the energy system of the body, how you can use it, the manifestation process, all the laws behind it. And I use quantum physics, which I studied and am fascinated by, because quantum physics really is now proving everything that yoga, mind, body, health, consciousness has been talking about for so many years. And so I put that all in this little book. It's kind of like a little metaphysical handbook where everything's put together in an outline form to help you understand these systems in one book. And that's what I'm into, you know, healing, helping people get through their rough times, how to do that, because I've had to do that. Anybody who's had to walk through having something happen to their child or a member of their family. I mean, it's going to turn you around. You just, you start looking at life differently.
Wow, that's amazing. Go ahead, Jimmy.
You're into archaeology too. I know you like to go to Egypt. Did you go on any digs?
I did.
Oh, what haven't you done?
I love traveling to archaeological sites, but mostly power sites. The energy in some of those ancient sites is palpable, and I've been trained in energy work for 30 years now. So much so that I was a facilitator for an energy mastery school, and
Wow.
this woman in Rio de Janeiro who came to the school said, I want you guys to come to Rio de Janeiro and facilitate this gathering of over 1,000 people that I'm going to give. And she flew us to Rio de Janeiro, and just, oh my gosh. And we did work the gathering, but also got to see all the sights of Rio de Janeiro.
Nice.
And then I've traveled to Egypt 3 times. I went once with the American Museum of Natural History, and there we didn't do a dig, but we did discuss more about, the archaeological part of it. And then they had a geologist with them. And when we were in the Valley of the Kings, he said, anybody who wants to come up and look at ancient lake bed, come with me. And you had to climb up these huge dunes. And I'm like, me. So there are about 6 or 7 of us. We climb up these huge sand dunes by the Valley of the King, where King Tut's buried, and all these tombs. We get up there, and he goes, this used to be under the ocean. Just start digging around. And we just started moving sand and found million-year-old petrified clams.
Oh,
I have a handful of them I smuggled out of Egypt. They're million-year-old petrified clams.
Wow.
And then I just got back from Peru. I went to Peru, Machu Picchu, Lake Titicaca region. Some of the oldest temples in the world are up there in Tiwanaku, and went to Cusco. And so, yeah, I love going to those kind of places and feeling the energy that's there and learning about them and learning about civilization of humanity. It's just fascinating.
So great. What about you're into astrology and stuff? Tell us something about that most people don't know.
Okay, well, I will say that I would never seriously date anyone anymore. Forget, going to any kind of dating site. All I do is ask them for their chart, because I can tell so much from just looking at a chart. People would be horrified.
Really?
You can find out. Oh, sure. You know how they were raised, what their parents were like, what their siblings were like, what they're good at, what their challenges are in their lifetime, a wealth of information. And I studied in particular with a Jungian psychologist who was a brilliant astrologer. So I can bring in Jungian psychology to the astrology to get your lessons. And, my kids used to laugh at me when they were growing up with all this stuff, like me chanting or standing on my head or, throwing tarot cards or doing astrology. But now, every time they're in a pickle or something comes up, I get a phone call. Mom, what's going on with my chart? Oh my gosh, can you do a tarot reading for me? What's happening? And they get it. So it's an amazing science. It's very, very complex. It took me at least 10 years to get to understand it, but yeah.
Very interesting. We had a question. Somebody wants to know, if you had the opportunity to get back into soap operas, would you do it?
It's in her blood. She can't say no. You just can't say no.
I can't say no. Obviously, I can't say no.
Never say never, right? Never say never.
But yes, never say never. And, it would just have to be the right character and the right soap, and probably not for long term, but it would probably be a lot of fun just to come on and mess up a few people's lives, which I did so well,
Sharon,
yes, it would be fun.
Do you ever go to any of the cons around the area, like in Persephone? There's the comic cons, the thriller cons.
Triller show.
Did you go to any of them?
I used to do. I haven't done anything recently, or in the last 20 years. I haven't there's not that much has gone on. The biggest thing these days are podcasts on YouTube where they'll get a soap family together and we'll do those. But when I was on the soaps, Joyce Becker used to put together a soap opera festival, and she would travel all over the United States with a group of soap stars, and we'd appear at adventure parks or outdoor arenas or malls, and she would pay us for it. And, you know, we would go and sit up there and answer everybody's questions. And they were actually a lot of fun because you would go with not usually people from your soap, but people from other soaps. I did one with Tony Geary once and
nice.
quite a few other soap stars. So I did that, but I'm not sure they do that anymore for soap opera. I know they do it, maybe Dark Shadows or some of the other like horror shows, horror films, things like that. No.
Are any of your children in show business?
Oh yeah.
Mom like her, of course, right?
So their
Did you
dad
want
was a musician. My dad was a musician who played on the radio with a country western band when he was young. You know, I play music and sing. Everybody's been a musician. So my son Max is an incredible musician. And he had a punk band for a while, and you know, then he had to start going to school and figure out how to support himself while he could be a musician. So but he's working on that. And my Jasmine, my oldest, she moved to Seattle and just incredible dynamo. She now runs her own theater company called Reboot Theater in Seattle.
Great.
And she has a one-woman show that she put on, and it won this festival in New York, actually. So that, but the pandemic was on, so they did it via Skype. But she was one of 10 acts picked for that, and she was also assistant to the director for a show that was heading to Broadway right before the pandemic. So she's well on her way. Her own theater company. She's just a dynamo performer, singer, actress. So that's very exciting for me to watch.
Now, you had a one-woman show, too. Tell us about that.
Yeah.
So when I was on One Life to Live, like I said, I only worked 2, maybe 3 days a week. And so I went back and started doing my voice lessons again, because singing is my favorite thing. If I could have picked anything I really wanted to do, I would have wanted to be a singer. But acting, it was just the one that, you know, offered the opportunity. So that's where I went. So I started, I know somebody told me that one of the hotels in town was doing a cabaret few weekends for soap opera people. And I quickly called them up and said, give me a slot, please. And it was they do 2 a night. So you only had to do 35, 40 minutes, which was nice for me for my first time. So I put together an act, had a top-notch vocal coach and my pianist, who was just so good. His day job was filling in at Radio City Music Hall for the Rockette show. That's how good he was.
Wow.
And I decided I don't want to just get up there and sing a bunch of songs. I want to tell a little story. So I told, through songs that I have sung, how I went from being a good little Catholic girl singing Latin masses, I still know them, you know, and to the guitar masses in the Catholic Church, to joining the theater and then singing more risque songs, to ending up playing El Donza in Man of La Mancha, the whore, you know, just like, and then to Raven. So, and I kind of, you know, told the story of my passage through the songs that I sang. So that was really, and I a friend of mine recorded it one night, which I have. And the recording's a little bit raw, but I am now editing the recording of that night in segments with me giving an explanation of that time and putting that together. I'm going to have that up on YouTube very soon.
Oh, very nice.
So, and then I'm working on a new act along those lines. I want to stay with keeping songs that describe, because people want to hear your story. They want to hear your
Absolutely.
stories.
Absolutely.
So if I can do that through songs, then that's what I want to do.
And you teach yoga. Tell us about the benefits of yoga.
So in 2009, I started getting some arthritis in my back because I'm the kind of person that if no one's around and I have to move a sofa, I put it up on my shoulder and somehow get it out. So I decided I need to do yoga, but I want to learn it the right way. So I went to Boulder, Colorado, to the Shambhava School of Yoga, which just super, super great school. Spent 3 weeks up in the mountains learning.
Oh, wow.
And became a certified teacher. And, I didn't really have time to like get a teaching to teach and get that together and start classes. I would just teach privately, but it was mostly for me to learn how to do it correctly, because I think everybody knows, one of the sayings when you get old is, oh, my sacroiliac. I mean, you got to keep that spine flexible and got to keep your body flexible and flowing. I talk about this in Spiritual Magic a lot.
Right.
If you want to be in the flow of life, think about that word flow.
Whoa,
and
yeah.
if you don't want to be stuck in your emotions or holding on to things, just these words say it all, or tight, you have to get your body flowing, and the energy flowing in your body, and yoga is one thing that really does that. And it's not that you have to do all these weird positions that, look like contortionists.
Yes.
There's very, very simple yoga for, I think if I ever taught a class, it would be for yoga for 70 plus.
Wow.
Just to show you how good it can feel to do those stretches.
Especially, not only you look amazing.
You do.
I mean, you got to be so limber compared to an average 70-year-old person that's walking around half,
Wow, look at that.
You know what I mean?
It won't go over my head, but
no, there is something to the yoga, because I know it actually relaxes the membranes in your body, the cells in your body, and also the bones.
It's physiological. It's physiological the way it works. I mean, so that's right. It's not just relaxing or stretching. It's getting the energy flowing all the way through your body. And then the big part of it also is expanding consciousness, because when you do it, you don't, you're not supposed to be thinking about all the stressful stuff that's going on in your day. It's a time to think about your body and do it. And it's about feeling good, not about pushing your body. It's about feeling good. So, it can relieve stress and get your mind off all the stuff that you think about. That makes
Sharon,
us tight.
the words you're talking about also, I got to agree with you, but I also understand that when we say that we have a problem health-wise, health issue, whatever it is, whether it's me or Jimmy or whoever, if we say that it's our problem, it's our problem. If we say it's not our problem, then it can go away as long as our mindset is in the right place. Isn't that correct?
Yes, it is. Mind over matter definitely is big, because this is one thing that is in both of my books, and that the new alternative medicine is heading in that direction. It's crawling in Western medicine. Eastern medicine gets it, but consciousness is so important to everything. What are you thinking? Because what you're thinking is what you're reacting to.
Right.
And your reactions are your emotions. And if you're reacting to stuff you're thinking of that's negative all the time, you're going to stress yourself out, and then you're going to stress your body out, and then you're going to get disease. It's just the way it works. And so, the good news is medicine is opening up the doors to more ways other than just pharmaceuticals to help. And I was working with some of the top physicians his name was Dr. Robert Jaffe, and he started the School of Energy Mastery, and he was an allopath and homeopathic physician who also was completely clairvoyant. So he could look in the auric field and see blotches of dark energy from stress that people were accumulating. And then he could see how it was going into their liver or going into their heart or going into their chest and setting up breast cancer or liver cancer or heart failure in the auric field. And then he could energetically work with your auric field and release that. And if you could release it before it gets to the physical body, you would never get the disease.
Wow.
And if it gets to your physical body, then it's a little more complicated. It's a little harder because now it is densified into the physical body.
Found a host.
Then you may need the surgery. You may need, the radiation or whatever. It's a little more complicated. So you want to use all of it. But the big point is we could prevent a lot of disease by just being mindful of, the type of energy we hang out with, what we're thinking about, how we let things get us, what we react to, as well as what we eat and, the people we hang out with, what we watch. This is all energy. The beginning of my chapter on energy work, which most people just don't give credence to, which is ridiculous, is a quote from it's a quote from Albert Einstein. Mm-hmm. Let me read this because this is Albert Einstein, not some guru in India. Everything is energy. That's all there is to it. Match the frequency of the reality you want, and you cannot help but get that reality. It can be no other way. This is not philosophy. This is physics. Albert Einstein. Wow. I mean, thank God. So it's not just crazy stuff. There's a science to it, which is what I try to teach in spiritual magic. There's a science to this, that physics and quantum physics and all the philosophers of the ages and psychiatrists like Jung and James Hillman, one of my favorite, all back up that there's a different way to heal now than just cutting things out or giving people drugs.
Tell us how to get these two great books with all this great information in it.
We need it. Everybody needs
Absolutely. We need these books.
Amazon. Go to Amazon.com. Amazon.com. You can put my name in, Sharon Rose Gabet, or each of these books. And again, just remember, if you're going to get Raven to the Dove, get the new edition. This new edition, not the old one, because we don't want those people getting $60 for a $15 book.
Is the newer edition? It's bigger, right? Looks like
yes, it's much bigger. Yeah.
Okay. Just want to make sure I get the right one. All right, Sharon. Yeah. Any other things you'd like to talk about before we go? We got about 8 minutes.
Oh well. So what I'm doing right now, again, I was telling you earlier, I'm going to be 70 in January, and I'm kind of preparing for that because I feel like there's a new beginning happening for me. A new beginning at 70. It's very exciting because my daughter, my autistic daughter, Johanna, is 31 now. And I lived in the Bay Area for about 12 years, but I just moved back to Southern California so I can get her settled near my son and his wife and get a place set up for her and providers, which I'm working on now. And for the first time, I have been her primary caregiver for 30 years. Wow. And it's been a joy. She's just a beautiful, beautiful soul. It's been quite a journey we've made together. I'll probably do a book just on her someday and the whole autism journey. But now is the time. She's ready to be more independent. And so I'm setting her up here. She'll be near her brother, who I'm training to take over the conservatorship responsibilities. And then I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm excited about the future, about what's in front of me now, where I'll go, what I'll do. It's wide open. I have a lot of projects, but.
Tell us how the listeners can keep in touch with you.
So I have my Facebook page, Sharon Rose Gabet. I have a YouTube channel, Sharon Rose Gabet, that I not only put a lot of my old tapes on, but I create new stuff that I put on. Last Easter, I love Jesus Christ Superstar. And, one of the things is everybody sings all the different parts. So I put on a fun thing where I put on wigs and play like 4 or 5 different parts of Jesus Christ Superstar. Put that on. And I'm going to put my cabaret act on there too. So that's on YouTube channel. And then I also have an Instagram page, Sharon Rose Gabet, where I just post a lot of different things.
Great. Any advice for anyone who wants to get into soap operas today or television today?
If you want to get into the business, my advice is always study. Do your work. Learn your craft. Learn your craft, because the one thing I learned, I'm assuming it's still true, and it was totally true when I was in New York. If you're good and you're not intimidated by being rejected, because you do have to learn the business process. That itself is something to learn, how to audition and the whole process. And sometimes that takes a few failures to learn before you can go back and get one. But if you're good and you believe in yourself and you've done your work and you know your craft, you'll get a shot. You will get a shot.
So
because
awesome.
There's a lot of riffraff in the field as well,
Oh, please, yes, I know. Please, we definitely know. One other thing you want to do, Sharon, is if you can, and if you don't, it's fine if you can't. But we just want you to say, who you are, Sharon Rose Gabet, whatever you want to say, and who you are from whatever soap opera. You're listening to the Jimmy Diele Show on Hamilton Radio.
Sure. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Hi, I'm Sharon Rose Gabet, who played Raven on The Edge of Night, and you're listening now to the Jimmy Diele Radio Show. Enjoy.
Perfect.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on the show. So great to have you. Thank you so much for being here, Sharon.
I'm glad it worked out. What a blast. You guys are terrific.
We love
thank you.
I hope I have a good aura around me.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, beautiful auras. You're shining.
What about me? I hope I do too as well.
You
do.
He's a good guy.
Trying to get my glasses.
You, Sharon.
See how to turn this off. Okay. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Sharon. We appreciate it. Stay in touch.
Love you.
I love you too.
We love you too.
Wow, what a good show. Jimmy, see, that's why I love people like that. They just are so full of energy, love, and they want to share everything they can with you.
Absolutely.
And it's just an amazing, it makes an amazing show.
You have to check out those books. Absolutely. Get them on Amazon.com. Yes.
For you, my friend, too.
Absolutely.
See what I meant when I said
positive energy. I need positive energy.
Mindset.
Absolutely. Coming up, Celebrity Spotlight on, Monday. We've got, actually Wednesday, we're going to do a special edition of Celebrity Spotlight. I almost forgot. 11 o'clock. We're going to do, Connie Francis is going to be here, the legend. So check this out. And also next Monday, we have the legendary Gary Lewis, son of Jerry Lewis. The legendary Gary Lewis and the Playboys, This Diamond Ring, so many great songs. Then we have an Elvis tribute with Kay Wheeler coming up. So many great people. Screaming Scott Simon of the legendary Sha Na Na. Kenny Vance of Kenny Vance and the Planetones will be here. Cheryl Cooley